going to tie a reverse parachute midge. This technique was invented by my friend Roy Christie, and it is perfect for tying emergers. We start with a Tiemco 206BL, and this is in a size 16. I'll tie this fly anywhere from a size 18 up to a size 10. Thread I'm using is Uni 17-aught Tricot. It only comes in white. I'm tying in the thread right behind the eye, and I'm creating a little bump. And what I'm going to use that bump for is when I tie in my tail, it'll use it to separate it from the hook. Now what I've got for a tail is called boar bristle. And what I like about it is it's naturally splits. It's like a split ends on a hair. And it's still tapered. And you only need a strand or two of it if it tapers correctly. So I'm picking through that boar bristle to find the right one. And I'm going to tie it underneath the hook right after that bump and take advantage of that bump that pushes it away from the hook itself. Now as I wrap that thread back to the bend of the hook, I'm trying to keep that boar bristle either underneath or to the side. It doesn't really matter, it's all going to get covered up anyway. Now I'm bringing my thread and my boar bristle all the way into the bend, right when it starts to bend, and trim it off. Now I've built up a little thread, that's my thorax area. Now this is peacock herl, where the herl's been stripped off and dyed. Now I've cut a little taper in it so I don't get any buildup. And I'm just tying it in by the taper. Just a little bit of a tag. I'm going to bring my thread back to the eye of the hook. Build up the thorax a little bit, get a little bit of a taper. Tie off my thread. Now I'm going to wrap that peacock strip back to the eye of the hook with concentric wraps and just butting it up next to each other. My eyes aren't what they were used to be, and so sometimes I get as tight as I possibly can, but sometimes I'll miss a little bit. And I'm just wrapping up to the eye of the hook. Now right before the eye, before I get that last wrap in, I'll bring my thread up and over the top of my peacock strip. Underneath, and it'll fall right after that peacock strip to trap it down, and just cleanly tie it off. I'm going to whip finish. Now you can see that thread. I'm just going to take a marker and color it just a little bit. Just a brown or a light tan marker would work just fine. I'm going to take a little bit of UV resin. I'll spread it across the top and a little bit on the sides, and then push it around. Mush it around. It's self-leveling, so it evens out pretty well. And what it does is it actually gives it a shell casing around it, and protects the peacock strip, but it also gives it depth and thickness. And see, I'm just spreading it around so that I get a little bit of more even coating on there. Take my UV curing flashlight. Doesn't take very long, it's not very thick. Notice how the boar bristle fluoresces in that UV light. I think the fish key off that and see that. I'm take my hook, reposition it so I can get to the bend of the hook. I'm going to tie my thread right back in again. Now strip off a little bit of the end of the feather. I'm going to tie it in. Before I do that, though, I'm going to take a piece of, it's about a foot long, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches long. This is a piece of 6X tippet material, and it's going to actually create my loop and my post for my hackle. Now I'll leave that long tag in and firmly attach that tippet to the bend of the hook. Now create a loop, and that's going to be my post. And I'll wrap again and nail the other end of that loop to the bend of the hook. See how I'm tucking right up underneath there with the thread? Now I'm going to take that loop made out of tippet and stick it in my gallows. My buddy, Roy Christie, and I can too, but he does it without using those gallows. He just uses it with his fingers. But for our purposes, so you can see what's going on, I've got that loop attached to a gallows. Now take that hackle and tie it in right at the bend. You want to nail that baby down really well because you don't want it pulling out. I'll go on both sides of that post and really tuck it down. Now I've got my hackle, I've attached it also to those gallows, and I'm going to dub the thorax area. This is just muskrat and gray. Trim a bit off of that feather stem. My buddy taught me a long time on dubbing. You pick as much stubbing as you need, cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And that's the right amount of dubbing. And what you want is your dubbing noodle to be about 2 to 3 times the thickness of your thread. You'll notice that I'm all spinning it or twisting it onto that thread all in the same direction. Now I've pushed it up so it's closer up to the point where it connects to the fly or to the hook. And you can see it's just a couple thicknesses with the dubbing. Now I'm going to build up that thorax area. tie it off. Basically, it's all the materials that are going to be attached are attached, so I can take off my thread. Now I'm going to take that hackle and that tippet post, and that's actually the post for my hackle, and I'm going to wrap around it, that post, about 6 to 8 times. And I'm laying each wrap on top of each other. They're not going down below it. It just keeps on building upward. Now go around about 6 to 8 times, and then I'm going to open that loop and pass that hackle in there twice. Now notice I press down the hackle a bit, go through again and press down again. Now I'm pushing down and pinching that hackle. I've released that loop, tippet loop, from my gallows, and now I'm pulling one of the tag ends. And it stacks that hackle, so I get my parachute. Now go back in, cut off the rest of the hackle as well as those tag ends and that tippet. Now, the way you fish this fly is you put your floating only on the hackle and not on the tippet. It's meant to have the tippet go down underneath the water. So floating only on the hackle, and the tippet hangs downward into the water.